All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our Friday Tech Talks. Today we have Ryan Spears with us, and they're going to discuss their journey going through the boot camp and landing a job right after, actually. So thank you for being here and take it away.
Yeah, no problem. As already been stated, my name is Ryan Spears. I currently live in Mississippi. I work for a company called NFI, headquartered in New Jersey. So what I currently do there, I am a solution developer. So I work on their Navitrace portal that they have for our customers to log in and track like shipments. They can go in and create like new orders, like for new shipments to be sent out. They can look at their invoicing reports and things like that. So that is currently what I'm doing. So let me get my presentation up so we can look at that. Okay. Okay, I'm going to try and stay consistent with this. I don't want to rush through it and make sure I get all my thoughts across. So what we're going to be talking about today is entering the workforce and starting a job after you've completed your boot camp at the Tech Academy. So to start it off, who am I? I've already went through this, but just to kind of recap it, I did the software developer boot camp full time in the year of 2021, and I finished in December of that same year. I didn't even finish. I started the job placement course, and before I even finished, I ended up getting a job. So I kind of graduated like way earlier than I should have, but it all ended up working out anyway. Like I said, I currently work as a solution developer for a company called NFI, and I also do my own freelance work for small businesses on the side. So we're gonna cover about 3 things today. The last part is just gonna be like a Q&A. So if you have a question, save it till then, and if I have an answer for you, I will give it to you then. The first thing we're going to talk about, we're going to be talking about like working through your boot camp. Like this is before you graduate. So I'm going to just try and give like my experience on going through it, and then just a couple of tips on like not falling behind. So like you can make sure you finish your boot camp on time. Then we'll be talking about what to do after you've graduated your boot camp. So this is going to be how I got my first job. And then, so also like maybe like tips and stuff for like after you graduate, like what to do after that. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is starting that first job, like the initial step, that foot in the door whenever you land your first role. And I'm also going to talk about like moving forward, like after that. And like I said, last part is going to be Q&A. So first up, we got working through the boot camp. So my experience with the Tech Academy it was pretty great. Like, I'm not going to lie. I went to a college in Salt Lake City. I'm not going to name it for obvious reasons, but it was very lecture based. Like it was a lot of sitting in the classroom, just listening to your instructor. And it was kind of hard for me to like learn those things, which I'm going to get into that in a minute. So before I even started the Tech Academy, I practically had zero experience like whatsoever in any type of like development or coding languages or any type of technology like that. I learned a little bit of Java at the college that I attended in Utah, and I had dabbled in like a little bit of C# for like things like Unity 3D and stuff. But other than that, like I was practically a complete beginner. So the reason I ended up going like with the Tech Academy is I was watching like a couple of YouTube videos, and a lot of the things that they were saying was that there's a lot of projects for you to do. Like you build up your portfolio by the small projects that they give you throughout your boot camp. And for me, as someone who learns by doing, like it's a learning philosophy that I completely adhere to, because for me, just hearing something or just maybe seeing it a couple of times, like it doesn't help me learn it. Like I don't absorb any of that information. Like I actually learn like much easier and quicker by actually doing the thing that I'm trying to learn. So that's a big reason I ended up going with the Tech Academy. So since they give you like these small projects and stuff like that, like you actually get to like be hands-on like with the technologies you're learning, and you're not just going to listen to a lecture for like your entire boot camp. So let's see the next thing. So in my experience, like something I did notice was like they kept talking the entire time, like we're not just here to like teach you a couple of languages and then send you on your way. Like the biggest thing was they want to teach you how to learn new things. So instead of just like coming in and just like they're like, okay, if this is C#, here's JavaScript, here's HTML, and then they just send you out there. They're all like, this is like a fundamental concept for this like technology or this programming language, and we're gonna like teach you how to learn this quickly. That way, instead of like just learning a couple of things like after you finish, like you can learn new things the exact same way you did during your boot camp. All the other technologies they teach you like throughout it, like they're just like add-ons to like the main end goal, in my opinion. Moving on, I've got a couple of tips to not fall behind. These are things that I did. That way I wasn't like getting stuck along the way or getting like 4 or 5 days behind and then like being able to finish early. So the first thing is to please set a strict schedule. I know it kind of seems like an obvious tip to give you, but like a lot of people don't actually do this. Like they're just like, yeah, like I'll start the boot camp and then I'll just kind of do it whenever I have free time, or just I'll do a couple of things here and there, and then like, you know, we'll just leave it for another day or whatever. And it never works out, and you always end up falling behind. So please set a strict schedule and adhere to it. The next tip is don't start too late in the day. So what I mean is like, this goes along with the first tip to set that strict schedule. If you start your boot camp and you say, okay, well, I'm going to do it 5 days a week, but I'm going to start at noon. If you end up starting at noon, like you're leaving like a large portion like out of your day that you could be working on your boot camp and like making more progress. And then you're losing more hours like later in the day that you could be putting towards other things. So if you were to start like that late in the day, like I feel like you're just selling yourself short on like the amount of work you could actually be doing. The next thing is to get plenty of sleep. I fail to do this a lot, especially nowadays. But during the boot camp, like I did make it like a big priority to make sure I had like plenty of rest. That way I could get up early the next day and continue on my progress and just stay consistent with that. Okay, taking frequent breaks. This is very important because you will get burned out. Like if you just nonstop work 24/7 and you take like no rest. Like if you like neglect like food and water and like just like a clear mental headspace, like you're going to burn out very quickly, and you might end up dropping the boot camp. You know, you're going to get behind because you're not going to want to do it anymore. You might lose motivation that way. So if I'd say like every hour, if you could take like a 5 to 10 minute break, like it just kind of gives you like a mental reset. That way, when you come back to it, you've got like fresh eyes and a fresh mind, and you're ready to keep going. The next thing is it can't just wait until tomorrow. So what I mean by this, if you're a procrastinator like I am, then you might come across like a project or something in your boot camp, and it's like the last thing you need to do for the day. And then like you've kind of caught up with like the goals that you've set so far, but you're kind of tired and you really don't feel like doing it today. And you're just like, oh, I'll just push it off until tomorrow. But what you're doing is you're setting like a really bad habit of like just pushing it off like until later. And the more you do that, like the more you're going to like make it a habit, and like you're going to keep falling behind. So instead of just saying I'm going to wait until tomorrow, just go ahead and do it. Like it's not going to hurt you. It's just a little bit more time in that day to put into doing your work. And you will thank me for it, because like you won't fall behind and you'll already have it done. So when you start the next day, you're already ahead of where you were supposed to be. And the last part kind of just goes into all the rest of those. Do more work if possible, but don't burn out. So this is something like I would do like a lot. Like if I like met my daily like, you know, goal, then if I had like enough energy and like I felt like I could continue going like without being like way too tired, I would just go ahead and just do a little bit more work. Like just if you, because then when you get ahead, like let's say something happens and you can't do your work for the day, like God forbid, like there's a death in the family or something like that, you have to go attend to that, you can't do your work. Well, if you were just doing a little bit more work along the way, like before that point, like you would be ahead enough to where like just missing this one day like isn't going to be too much of a problem. So that's why I say just go ahead and work ahead if you can, but don't do too much to where like you lose the motivation for it. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is what to do after you've graduated. So even before graduating, during your job placement course, since I got my job before even completing this course, this is where I think your job search is actually going to start. Not after you've completed it, but when you start the job placement course. So whenever I started it, like I had Carly like help me with my resume. She went through with it with me, and we kind of spruced it up to make it look good. And as soon as that was done, I immediately started like sending out applications with my resume on it, like as soon as that was done. So that's, I feel like that was like a good reason that like I was being noticed more and I ended up getting that job quicker. So on top of doing this course, you should be like doing like filling out applications and stuff. You need to practice the STAR method for your interviews, and then following up on those applications like after you've sent them out. And I feel like that should be just kind of go hand in hand with your job placement course, but without falling behind, because obviously you're not done with your boot camp yet. So you still need to stay on top of that. So with all that being said, in my opinion, this is going to like this portion right here in your job placement course is going to most likely be the most time consuming like part so far for you, because like you got to juggle between finishing your boot camp, sending out these applications, practicing interviews, following up on these applications. Like you need to do all of this like in tandem together. So that's why I feel like a lot of your time is going to be spent, you know, doing all of these things with each other. So let's say you've actually completed the boot camp, you've done your job placement course, you still haven't found a job yet, but you're no longer in your boot camp. So you might be finished with it, but the work is definitely not done. Like there's still tons of things you still need to do. Just as you were doing during the job placement course, you need to continue doing now, submitting those applications, you know, practicing interviews, following up on applications. This is going to be your new full-time career, like most definitely, because the more consistent that you stay doing these things, the more your name is going to be out there. You're going to be recognized more. Then that's most likely the reason you're going to find like your new role is by staying consistent like this. Another thing is to not to be afraid to network with other developers, whether it be in your area or it's just online, it's in like a Discord server, it's in a Slack server you're in. Like just be sure you're like reaching out to like other developers or other aspiring developers even, because these are the people that could like land you your next role. So, I mean, like, for example, you network with this developer guy, he works for company X out of, I don't know, Portland. And he learns about like a role that they have, you know, internally, like it's not posted on a job board anywhere. So since y'all have networked and, you know, he's like, well, he's a really good developer, so he might be a good fit for the position. He could give you that referral to like his upper management. And like, that could be a way that you get your foot in the door that way, just because like you're on good terms with this guy who works there. So that's why I feel like networking with like other developers is definitely going to be a pro any way you look at it. So next, starting your first job. So this is going to be, you know, like you've done all the interviews, you put all the work in, and now it's time to reap your rewards. So, so your first day on the job. So my advice for this is to not be nervous, because if you go in like nervous, you're expecting to fail, you're most definitely going to fail. So like, if you get hired at a company and they're like respectable, the upper management, like they're good people, then they're not going to expect you to be able to do everything out of the box. Because like, I mean, if we all, like, every junior developer understood like how to do everything, like as soon as they graduated their boot camp, then they're not junior developers anymore. Like, you're a senior developer at that point, and it's just unrealistic to look at it that way. So if they're respectable in any way, like, they're going to understand that, and they're not going to expect that kind of work from you. So there's no need to be nervous. Like, they know you're new, so you'll be fine. Don't be afraid to like ask any coworkers or other developers that are on your team for like help or advice, because especially if they've been there for longer than you, because like these are the guys that are gonna like show you like the ropes. They're gonna show you everything about the job and how you need to do it. Maybe they have like new tips or something on how you can do it more efficiently. So like don't like just shy away from these guys, because like you need to be able to like integrate with them, build strong relationships with them, that way they can, help you further in your position. So if you're like me and you start your new job and you are the sole developer there, Google, like that's the only thing I can tell you. Google everything. That will be your best friend. That is going to be your senior developer who's going to show you the ropes, because there's no one else there to help you, and it's scary, and there's not really anything you can do about it. So Google is your best friend if you're the sole developer. So moving forward after you finish your first day, so like you started your first day, it went great. You met all the people on your team. You've met your boss. You've learned how to do a couple of things, and you started doing your job. This is where you're going to go after that. So one of the things that I started doing after I started my first job was trying to do more than what was asked of me, because I wanted to stand out. I wanted to like rise up to the ranks. I didn't want to be stuck at like my low level position with the same pay for 3 or 4 years before someone finally like noticed the effort I was putting in. So I wanted to like do way more than what was being asked of me, but not burning myself out, if that makes any sense. Don't stop learning new technology just because you're not in the boot camp anymore. Because if you get a job and you think that you're only ever going to utilize what you learned in your boot camp, then you could not be more wrong. Like, I started my first job and we were using PHP, like not even in my boot camp. Like, I had no idea like how it worked, like any of the syntax for it. I had no idea. I was lost. So before I even started like my first day, like I YouTube videos, like went to PHP docs, like opened up a couple of projects trying to learn how to use it. And that really helped a lot. So I would say like even if like you're not going to be using, let's say, like everything you did in your boot camp, like at your job, like it would still be good to like keep practicing those things as well, because like you never know like when you're going to use it. Like at my previous position, we were after like I'd been using PHP for like 6 months. I was like, okay, this isn't working as well as it could be working. It could be more efficient. So what did I do? I learned how to use Next.js, and I started building all of our projects with that. So like I learned it in like a week. Like, it was just super easy to learn because I had went through my boot camp and I paid attention, and like now I'm able to learn things relatively quickly and easily. So I would say like don't stop learning, like keep learning new things, because technology is always changing and you really don't know what the next best thing is going to be. Also, gain as much experience as possible. What I mean by this, it kind of goes in with what was on the previous slide, by asking like questions like to your peers and things like that. Get them to review your code, maybe get them to like teach you something that, like a new trick that they do in their position that you don't necessarily do in yours. The more experience you gain, the more responsibility you can gain at your position. And the more responsibility you gain can lead to higher pay or better roles and overall more experience. And the last thing is, even if your job sucks, try to stick to it for at least a year. That was a rule that I set for myself after I got my first job. I was like, even if this role is not what I want it to be, even though it pays terribly, the work is not that great. Like, I work long hours. Like, even so, stick with it for at least a year, because I want to make sure when I start sending out applications again that it doesn't look like I'm just job hopping, because it's not going to look good like to potential employers that you leave positions like so soon after like getting the job there. So if you stay there for at least a year, it shows that you've at least got some type of loyalty, like you've got some consistency. And so that looks good to them whenever like you want to work at their companies. So I would say all of this, yeah, a year. I'd say a year, because anything less than that is going to be kind of like you're not really like consistent. You're not really loyal with them. So I think that would be like a good starting point for your career, for your first job. And then anything after that, now you've got a year's worth of experience and you look way better to like recruiters or other employers. And that's it for all of that. We can open up like a Q&A for anybody who does have any questions for it. And if I have the answers for you, then I will answer it to the best of my ability.
Great. Well, thank you so much. There are some questions in the chat. Also, my
Okay.
screen is freezing. I don't know if you guys can actually. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
So Serengeti has a question. Google is awesome. Do you use ChatGPT?
No, I
That's
don't
a question everyone's
use
asking nowadays.
ChatGPT. No. I mean, I've used it a couple of times, just not for work. Like, I can definitely see how it could be like useful, like for your job, especially like how it can like write code for you. So like, yeah, maybe like whenever you get your job, try it out. Tell me how it works.
Great.
Okay.
And then another question. So regarding continuing learning, are there any specific learning resources you recommend, like Udemy courses, etc.?
Okay. I would say, I mean, I like free options. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like paying like just to learn something that I could learn for free. So I use like I go to like just YouTube courses, or there's like Free Code Camp, there's Code Academy, W3 schools, like any of those guys, like they're completely free, and like you can just go through those courses and learn pretty much any technology that's out there right now. But I have done Udemy courses before, and they are definitely in depth. I mean, if you're really wanting options like that, there's also like LinkedIn Learning. Like they also offer like courses you can take.
Got it. Thank you. And then is your current job slash past job remote or on site?
Okay, so my past job was on site. Like I moved from my hometown to Jackson, Mississippi, which is where my past job was, just so I could be closer to the office. And I was there for like a year. My current job is remote. I did fly out to New Jersey for like a week just to meet the team, get to know people in the office. But since then, like I've just been at home and I just work remote a couple hours a day, sometimes longer, depending on what I'm working on.
Got it. And then do you think that was for your first job? Do you think it was good that you got one on site rather than remote?
Yeah, I actually have been asked this before, and I'm kind of torn. I do definitely think it is better to have like an on-site job for your very first one, just because like you can like make those connections with the people there. And like if there are like other developers on your team, like you're able to quickly just turn your chair around and ask them any questions you have, and it just makes it easier on everybody. But I mean, with technology now, like just do a screen share and you know there you go. It's practically the same thing. You just kind of lose out on that in-person connection, I feel.
Got it. And then there's another question. Let's see. Uh, it's from Serengeti, if you'd like to answer that one. Want to take a look at
Okay.
that?
But I ask for the sake of content, how old are you, and did you have a prior professional experience that you leverage when job searching? I'm 22. I'll be 23 in November, and I had zero professional experience before starting.
Wow. That just shows that like you can really learn anything from the boot camp and just take it from there.
Oh yeah, when I started my previous job, like everyone was asked like, "How old are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm like at the time like I was 21," and they were just like, "How? Like you shouldn't be here. Like you should still be in college." And I was like, "I didn't do that. Did boot camp for 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, worked out the same."
I mean, you're pretty young to start at your first tech job. That's awesome. Good for you. Yeah. Let's see. What job titles were you looking for when you applied for jobs? This is actually a good question. It comes up quite often because people don't know what key terms to look for, like searching on Google or LinkedIn or Indeed. So which ones did you look for?
Okay, that's a tough one. I applied for nearly every entry level position under the sun. Like there were a ton of web developer jobs that I applied for, but the main thing I wanted to do was just software development, like computer programs and stuff. Sadly, those are like few and far between in Mississippi. Like it's mainly just like web development. So that ended up being like what I did. But now I'm into more software development now that I can work remotely and I've got more experience. So I would just say, like if you're gonna get an in-person position, I would search for like I would check at like what positions are available in your area, really. Like what's the market look like there and kind of base your search off that. But if you're going to work remote, then honestly it's really up to you.
Got it. And then when you were applying for jobs, did you apply for ones that you necessarily didn't qualify? Because people tend to hesitate,
Oh
but
yeah.
some people say just apply for them, you'll learn on the job.
Yeah, when I first started applying for these jobs, like I it was just like you need like 5, 6 years of experience. Like you got to know like a bunch of these technologies that I've never heard of. And I was like, I can learn that. Like this fine. I've definitely got 6 years of experience, like totally. So like I applied for so many like mid-level. I applied for senior level positions sometimes. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but I did do it. So yeah.
You know, a lot of people who post these jobs on LinkedIn or other platforms, they're not developers, so they're just like putting something together to look for a candidate. So I think it's great that you did apply for all these jobs, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
And
The recruiter I was working with to get my current position, like even like he was even telling me just like, 9/10 of these things that they give us, like these companies give us to put in a job descriptions, like most of it has nothing to do with the role. It's just things that might have been used in the past or might get used like maybe every 3 months or something, but it still goes like onto the job description. So I would say take a lot of the job description with a grain of salt because like if it's got like 6 different programming languages and like 4 different databases, like you're probably not going to use all of that. Like there's probably like 1 or 2 on there that you're going to use on like a daily basis, and that's really going to be it. So I'd say just apply for it anyways.
no, I think that's great. Let's see. How much of your work day do you actually code, or what does your normal work day consist of?
Okay, so between like my previous position and my current position, it's like night and day. So at my last job, like I was coding all day. Like I would get there at 7:30 and I would leave at like 5:30, 6 o'clock for the majority of my time. And I was there building websites, just coding pretty much all day. At my current job, uh, I've coded like an hour today. I coded like 3 hours last week. Like I don't really like write a lot of code like I used to. Like it's mainly like meetings. I'm replying to emails. Looking at Google Analytics now. I'm digging around through SQL. Like I'm replying to messages in Slack, setting up logins. Like that's really the majority of my job now. Until I get like a feature or something I have to implement, then I might code for like maybe 5 hours. Get it done depending on how big it's going to be. I would say on average, an hour, 2 hours a day, maybe, if that.
No, it really depends on the position, but people are really
Mhm.
surprised when you tell them that just because, what the image everyone has of programmers like sit in the basement like typing code all day long.
Yeah.
But it's actually a lot of meetings that you have to attend, a lot of
Mhm.
uh, group projects that you have to go through and talk to your team members.
Yeah, I'd say the
And people
biggest
don't see that side.
difference. Yeah, the biggest difference is going to be the size of the company. If you're going to work at like a small company that's not necessarily tech related, like my last job was a marketing agency. I was like the sole developer there for the majority of my time. So of course I'm going to be writing like tons more code than what you would at like my current job. We're like a large corporate, setting. Like there's like a lot of moving parts here, and it takes time to actually get anything done. So I'm going to write, you know, much less code at this job than I would my last. So it just depends on the size of the company, really.
Awesome. Let's see. So how many interviews did you attend before attending or landing your first tech job?
Okay. And then, okay. How many interviews did I attend? One. I did one interview and got the job.
Because you said you finished it right.
Yeah.
You had your
Yeah.
job placement course and you didn't even get to that because you already had the
Yeah.
job.
I didn't get to any of that. I didn't even make it to that. I mean, to be fair, that's not something that's going to happen very often. I do know that it's like like one in a million kind of thing to happen, but it can happen. Like I'm living proof that it can happen, but I wouldn't say get your hopes up. Like, I mean, you can be like the greatest developer in the world, and like you just might not be applying to the right positions. Like, you never know. I didn't even apply to my first job. She found me on ZipRecruiter and then reached out to me. But she only found me on ZipRecruiter because I was constantly on there, like filling out applications and stuff. So like the more you're active, like in the application scene, like the more people are going to come across you. So yeah, I really don't know. I don't know what kind
No,
of
yeah,
answer.
uh that's great advice. Yeah. Most of the time it usually does take longer. It's actually really hard to land your first job.
Mhm.
So Ryan got pretty lucky and of
I got
course he put
very
in the
lucky.
hard work, of course. But yeah, usually it does take longer. So if it's taking you longer to land a job, please, this is
Mhm.
normal, don't worry. Um,
And tips
but
for practicing
yes, I was gonna
interviews.
say also, did you actually end up doing a technical interview for any of these positions?
Not for
No?
my first one.
Okay.
So for this job, my current position, I did have 3 different rounds of interviews to go through. It was pretty rigorous, and I had a lot of competition. So the first interview was just with the director of the team. So I had my interview with him. He asked me about like my experience. We went down my resume. He told me about the job position and stuff. And what I did is I used the STAR method, obviously. So like I talked about like a problem that we had, and then I talked about like the steps I took to overcome it, like what the results for it were. And I think doing that like throughout your interview is like a good way to show that you're at least knowledgeable, or like you're showing like your process for working a problem out, so they can kind of get like a better understanding of like how you're gonna operate on their team. And then the second interview was my technical challenge. So the job I do now is heavily based around APIs. And so the whole tech challenge was for me to connect to an API and make sure I'm making the post request right. That way, the JavaScript object I got back, I could sort through it and then display those results based on a zip code that the user would input. And just stylize it a little bit and send it back. And then the third interview was talking with the rest of the team. They just asked me a couple of questions and then I just chatted it up with them. And those were the 3 interviews. So they said that I knocked it out of the park. I was the most tech savvy, is what they said. And no one else's technical challenge came close to mine. So that's what they told me.
That's awesome. Wow. Good for you, Ryan. Oh, that's great. It looks like those are all the questions we have in the chat. Let me know if you have any other questions, guys. Also, if anyone wants to connect with you on LinkedIn, is that a good place? I know that you said you use it
Yeah.
quite frequently. Would that
Let
be a good
me
place for people to connect with you?
grab my link for you, and I'll put that in
Perfect.
the chat.
And then also to just let everyone know, of course, we're recording this Tech Talk, and you can definitely watch it back. Let me share that link with you. Second. And then also next week we'll have another tech talk. This will be more of a technical talk. We will have someone talk about data engineering and health insurance letters. Something we haven't had a talk on yet, so definitely join that one. That one will actually be at the regular time, which would be 1 p.m. Pacific time. But let me share the YouTube link. I will post it later today, but if not, on Monday. So link. There we go. There you guys go. Any last thoughts, Ryan?
I mean, if you're still in the boot camp right now, don't fall behind. Falling behind is never going to be good for you. Try to finish early. Get to the job placement course. Utilize those live projects. Like, those are awesome. Like, those live projects help me get my current job, especially the C# and .NET, the live project for that. So do as much as you can, do as many stories as you can for those. Like, those are going to be like huge helps because they're internships. So they're good experience for you. Get to the job placement course, fill out tons of applications. Like, just keep sending them out. Like, regardless if you think you're entirely qualified, just apply for it. Like, you never know.
Oh, awesome. I know a lot of people who have actually landed their jobs based on the live project, so make sure you do take advantage of that for sure. But other than that, thank you so much for joining us today. It was very informative. Thank you. And I hope you will join us maybe for another Tech Talk in the future.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Of course, of course. And I hope you guys have a good weekend and a happy Friday. And I'll see you guys next week.
All right, guys.
Bye, Ryan. Thank you for joining us. Also, wait, hold on. Let me end the recording.